Well, hello everyone. Welcome to week 8 in England. This is the Formula G show, and we are kind of wrapping up the season as the real Formula One season is kicking off. My name is Zotomo, and I'm joined as always by Calamity. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing good. How are you?
I am great. Yeah, we were in the home of Lancaster Racing for this one. This map is from the team map pool, which we got to play. And we're going to look at 5 pretty scattered locations throughout England today, Calamity, as we'll switch to the map view. Round 1 saw us in the southeast, outside of London, off the M2 north of Canterbury.
Yeah, they were pretty scattered, but interestingly, not too far north, actually. The furthest north we went was just outside of Derby.
Mm.
Nothing near Manchester, Liverpool, Leeds, Newcastle, even up there. But yes, round one, relatively close to London. On the what was it? The A2.
Mm.
That interestingly, you don't see it on this map because it's a bit too far zoomed out. But the A2 is one of those like yellow roads. And then in Rochester, it actually splits up into the M2, which sort of goes around the south, and the A2 just continues being like a white road through Rochester and Rainham and Newington and so on. And then they
Mm.
meet up again about 15, I'm going to say maybe 20 kilometers later, which is a little fun fact. But yeah, the round itself, not too much problems for most of the drivers. You were pretty close to some major signs, and with the road numbers being relatively straightforward in most places in England, not too difficult to find the A2, and then the cities slash towns that you had the sign for also stand out relatively quickly. It was then not too easy to pinpoint the round, but not more than a couple points lost for most people.
Nice. Round 2 saw us pretty close to central Norwich on the kind of more, I wouldn't say North English because it's, a very narrow country, but on the eastern coast there.
After seeing what the actual city borders of Manchester are like, I hesitate to say we were close to the center of Norwich because I don't know where that is. Um,
True.
the central part of where it says Norwich on the map, yes, not too far away from that. I wonder actually because there's Norwich and then there's Norwich over the water, but I
Mm.
don't know if that's a different city or if that's just basically like a suburb. I might have to look that up later too. But yeah, probably the easiest round out of all of them, just because we were in a big city and you probably had multiple different directions you could have gone to find out that you are in that city. And then you also weren't too far away from major roads. So yeah, probably not the most difficult to pinpoint either.
Hmm. Very nice. Round 3 saw us catapult across the entire breadth of the country, way in the southern tip of Cornwall on the west coast. And we were next to a castle, Tregenna Castle.
Yep.
So plenty of signs for that, as well as coastal signs. Vacation spot made that one pretty easy to find if you know where to start to look.
Yeah, some nice sightseeing there near St. Eves in the far southwest corner of England. And yeah, you had plenty of mentions of the coast. And even then, if you'd found, either if you just started looking there and Tregenna Castle stands out pretty soon, but also if you just found signs for St. Eves, for example, or St. Ives, I don't know,
Mm.
you also probably would have arrived at that place relatively quickly.
Not bad. Round 4 saw us go as far north as we got, and as Calamity mentioned, just north of Derby. And kind of in between the A6 and the A38. Probably the trickiest thing here was just finding the little suburb you were in and actually being able to pinpoint it. The road didn't quite seem to match up with what the street view gave us.
Yeah, definitely the most difficult round for almost everyone here. There were, for example, we saw Mr. Blue found a mention of Derbyshire. So you could go off of that and find out that you're near Derby somewhere. But I personally, in all of those 4 minutes, I never found the mention of the town, Belper itself. Um, You did get to some signs that mentioned the A609, but that in and of itself isn't one of the bigger yellow roads, but a white road, so also probably very difficult to find. So you kind of had to rely on probably just finding some of the other towns that were mentioned on the sign that also told you the A609 is leading there. In the end, most points by people were dropped in this round, and especially in the top 10, this was essentially the only round that decided anything.
Mm. Oh, and then finally, round 5 saw us head way down to the south coast again, outside of Dorchester, near or along the A37. But again, not too difficult to pinpoint that one. A couple good signs, including the local village name, made it quite simple.
Yeah, if you've ever had, or if you've got any idea of where Dorchester is, you shouldn't have had too many problems with that. But yeah, even if you didn't know where it was, I'm assuming you probably would have found some mention of a road that started with a 3, so that should have given you the general area. And then it's just about, finding out which small town you're in and pinpointing it, which, again, not too difficult of a task for most of our drivers.
Indeed, and that definitely, the ease of this seed definitely shows itself in the feature race results. As we take a look at those now, you can notice that all the way down in 17th, Wakalaka, our hometown hero and Lancaster driver, unable to really get anything but his score, 24,265. Most days that would not be a bad score at all, but the relative ease of the seed means he's way down there. You had to be over 24,790 to get any points. Labon Greb sitting there at 10th. But two Americans taking the top spot with the only perfect scores. Mr. Blue just missing out in third.
Yeah, Wakelock a bit disappointed, I'm sure, with that. He only dropped points in that round for himself. I think a lot of people, if I'm just looking at the distances here, all guessed in Derby itself. Actually, wait a second. He didn't guess in Derby. Why are the distances all the same? Let me have one look. Okay, they all guessed sort of near Ilkeston, which was the small town on the sign that the A609 is leading to, which is a bit strange to me because the A609 ends in Ilkeston. So you naturally assume, I guess, that you're at the other end of that. But yeah, they all dropped more than enough points to fall out of the top 10 in that one. Apart from that, definitely Moist Flubber with a very nice performance there, as well as Xander, of course. Xander himself has only had limited success so far this season. This is his first podium, but he also had the fastest 25k, so another few bonus points there, and it definitely bumps him up the ranking quite a bit. Apart from that, not too many surprises there. Laban Greb and Solar Sensei also struggling with this season in general, so it's nice to see them getting some points at least.
Yeah, probably the most notable thing we're not talking about, the elephant in the room, is that Boxa had a very busy kind of spring holiday season, just not able to play and get out of the garage to begin with. Takes a DNS on this as well as the sprint race, so a very good week for drivers to catch up to him, and at least his lead at the end of the season won't look as dramatic as it possibly could. As we shift over to that sprint race now, we had 5 pretty central locations from the random pool here in Manchester for our sprint race in this one. But so actually kind of made it a little bit easy in the sense that in some of these things, you might have even been able to find the other location if you had some of the longer time stamps. For this one. Here is the order you had them in, Calamity, and round 1 saw us on the A6042, a pretty major ring road kind of going around the central city here.
Yes, and just before we get into the locations itself, I kind of mentioned it beforehand, but I recommend anyone who has not seen what the city borders of Manchester are to take a look at them because they're quite interesting. But yes, round 1, which I think, as far as I remember, isn't actually within the city borders, but very close by, on the ring roads, right next to the probably the main train line. It's difficult to decide between that one and the more southern one, but next to some train tracks, therefore not too difficult to get a general idea of where you are. And then probably if you've made it to the northeast, you would have found a major intersection, which also gave you some more street names. So yeah, definitely, well, probably even the easiest round out of all of them.
Yeah, like I'm trying to. Yeah, the official city boundary of Manchester is just insane, and it
Mhm.
is really hard to tell from the map if this is a legit, actually in the official city limits of Manchester City Council, but it is
It's
within
right.
the
It's right on the
yeah
edge. Yeah.
yeah it's in the Manchester metropolitan area, which is kind of what almost all the maps were playing off of when I was looking at this. But yeah, if you look at Manchester proper, we might have been pushing our boundary a little bit with that one. Round two, we were on sort of the A6 as it went through the town on kind of the eastern side of things, so not too tricky either.
Yeah, one of the major roads through the town. I'm thinking I probably went south to find Piccadilly Station, which then stands out as pretty much, if you zoom in, that's one of the first big subway stations that stands out. Is it a subway station or is it a train station?
It's just a
It's
train
probably a
station. I don't
train
think they have a
station, yeah,
subway.
right.
Yeah.
No subway. Um, but yeah, not too difficult to find. You also went over a small canal, I'm gonna say. Don't actually know if you could have seen that going there because I don't remember seeing it, but
Mm,
you can see it on the map at least. Let me see. No, I don't think you can see it. So it must just be like on the ground,
mm,
or they've just built a road over it. It's also
yeah.
possible.
Very likely.
Um, yeah.
Yep, round three, we're across town, not too far off of a pretty major junction in that ring road down there, and yeah, the off the A56. If round one was barely in the boundary, and you're like, well, then certainly A3 is round three is not in it. Well, no, it just kind of skips that whole corner and meets up again at the bottom. So yeah, very interesting boundaries indeed.
Yeah, and unfortunately, round three started us off in basically, I'm gonna call it connected photosphere because I think that's the
That's right.
proper
This is
term
the
for
weird
it.
one. Yeah.
Yes, where someone's just gone like, "Hey, I want to take photos of this random side road, for I don't know what reason, in very, let's call it subpar quality." um, I think you might have even been able, if you could have read something there, like for example, to your north, there was a building that had a big sign on it that said the wharf.
Mm,
So just by that, you could have probably been able to tell that you're somewhere near a river slash canal. Um, but if you went south, if you followed that little trek, then you would have made it to a main road, the A56 or Chester Road, as the sign there actually says. And if you then clicked in the right places, you could leave these photospheres. But a lot of people, I'm pretty sure, struggled with that round
mm.
in particular. And yeah, I myself, I found Chester Road, but in the wrong place. And you can see kind of there on the far south or like the bottom left corner of the map there, you can see the A56 going off of the intersection with the M or A57.
Mm.
And west of that, the little part that you see here is called, I think it's Bridgewater Way. But if you go further west from that, to the next intersection, it starts being called Chester Road again.
Mm.
And the little white road that connects two different places of that A56 is also called Chester Road. So I just never checked east of that, to be honest.
Yeah, pretty tricky round indeed. There is official Google coverage in that exact spot, but when you spawn into it, you spawn into his own coverage and not the Google coverage, which is just the weirdest thing. So if you start outside of it and go in, you stay in Google coverage. But if you start inside and go out, it is like the opposite. And it's just
Yeah,
he
that's also
overrode Google's coverage somehow, and it's just a really weird mess.
Yeah,
Uh,
a little tip for anyone who's creating like challenge maps and with just like 5 locations, because it's difficult to do if you create a map with like 1,000. But
hmm,
if it's just 5 locations, just don't trust that the place you've put it at in the map creator is the place that people will actually spawn at. Just play through it once as a challenge or just as a normal game, and then once you see that it is the proper place, then you can actually go with it.
yeah, I think that's what it got me. Like when you're actually like trying to make the map, it shows you the Google coverage, and then I'm like,
Yes.
oh, okay. And then when you actually jump into it, it does some weird switch on you where it gives you this Trekker coverage instead of what it showed you in the preview and what actually is there in Google
Yep.
coverage. But anyway, round four saw us on a little side road again, not too far from kind of two train stations. If you're able to, depending on which way you went, Manchester Oxford Road or Deansgate.
Yes. I don't actually think I went to either of them. I just saw again, okay, there's train tracks to the south, and then the road was called Whitworth Street, and I think that's about it for the amount of information I needed for that one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I think the location we spawned at is again slightly weird. We spawned on a sidewalk, essentially, next to
Yeah,
the
but
road.
this one is Google coverage,
Yes,
so
yeah,
it's like
it is.
some weird stuff going on in Manchester here.
I wonder how the
Uh,
Google car got there though, because from what I can tell, there's a couple of
there's posts in the way, and yet
yeah,
the car literally drives through in the coverage. It drives through the posts.
yeah. I don't know how that works. Maybe just some official Google dude on a bicycle. Um,
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's Google coverage is done by a bicycle in part of the downtown district of Manchester.
yeah, it's weird, but like if you look at the
It looks like a car that's been blurred out, but it
now if
cannot
you
be
look
a
at
car.
if you look at the shape, it's actually it's too thin to be a car in that
Ah,
place
there we go.
specifically.
Yeah, some of the
Um,
coverage. Yeah.
so yeah, but anyway, this one not as difficult to find.
Mhm. And finally, round five saw us probably as downtown as you can get in Manchester, given how its crazy borders. And nothing too crazy about this one. Not too far from Peter Square and the Central Library was even the city council offices. So those points of interest might have been able to be found and used for that.
Yeah, so if anyone has just looked at famous places in Manchester beforehand, they might have been, might have seen the Manchester Central Library, might have been able to recognize it.
Mhm.
I personally went, I think I went east and then north to Albert Square, and from there, again, pretty, pretty easy to find. You're pretty central, and I think in general, Manchester was strangely, usually in towns, it's kind of like if you find signs to other parts in town, you can
Mhm.
never really trust which direction they point at. But in Manchester, I found it to be quite reliable.
Mhm.
Like if it says, hey, this district is over there to the east, then it usually is actually to the east of you, which for some reason seems to be a rarity in cities.
Very nice. Yeah, well, not the trickiest of locations, despite some of the oddities in the coverage. As we can see here, the top 10 drivers all perfect and separated only by distance. Shumi and M the Basement actually being separated by time. Teammates there competing for third place. M the Basement will come out on a very nice podium. But very noteworthy here, Moist Flubber, 2 for 2 this week. 2 wins out of 2 maps for him. Yeah, Mr. Blue not quite able to repeat his performance down there in seventh. But yeah, again, Solar Sensei, as you mentioned, in eighth, so didn't move too far from that. In this city, Wakelock unfortunately not able to do well in his home country. 17th in the feature race, 15th here in the sprint race.
Yeah, I think Moist Flubber, I don't think I know Moist Flubber is the first this season who's managed to win both feature and sprint race
I think
of
so. Yeah.
a country. Not made.
Boxa got Montenegro and Podgorica.
Oh right, I
So
scrolled over to the right in my standings to So basically, the most left I saw was Podgorica, so I just couldn't see Montenegro. Yeah, that would help if I scrolled all the way over.
Yeah.
So yeah, the second guy also probably made a little bit more easier by the fact that he wait a second. He had a very short time limit. Why did he have a short time limit? Oh right, well, I I don't remember how the competition works. I was looking at the sprint race from last week and for like, oh, he got 0 points there. He had a long time limit. No, he finished, I think, sixth in Bulgaria. So he had a short time limit as well. So definitely a good job from him. And also, yeah, great sprint race there for Octane Engineering with Baseman and Shumi in third and fourth. I think getting about a quarter of the points they've gotten all season so far in that single race.
Yeah.
Yeah, apart from that, good race from Karp as well, who has boosted himself up the order quite a bit with that as well.
Yeah. And definitely helping his teammate, Mr. Blue, out there in the Constructor Challenge. As we take a look at those standings now, into the final 2 weeks, we'll notice that our top three are all Europeans. Boxa, Orpheus, and Mr. Blue keep their top spots. Mr. Blue having a very good week. Boxa hasn't been playing a little bit recently, but he still has quite a significant lead. And then it is the American finishing out of that top portion. Other than that, not a whole lot of changes. People moving up and down a little bit, but that's about how things are shaping up going into those final 2 weeks. And with those very nice finishes, we will see that they boost Keservatsa into second over rival Skentrum, who just weren't able to quite capitalize on Boxa missing out too much in this week. And actually, the Constructor Challenge pretty close, only about 60 points or 38 separating those two teams. So even if Boxa has a pretty demanding lead in the Constructor in the driver's standings, he is still doing quite well in the team. The team race is much closer, rather. Sorry, I got that backwards. Yeah, but then Scantrum, Chariot, and Norhagen all pretty close there around that 190, 160 mark. And Octane getting a pretty big boost, just 1 point short of 100.
Yeah, and Chariot's the one getting the most points this week, brings them almost to Skönström with just that 1 point difference. Apart from that, yeah, most constructors still relatively close together in pairs almost. And then at the bottom there, Orient actually with that second place from Xander making a big jump, and Cape and Lancaster still struggling to get points on the board. For Cape at least, it's been the second week in a row where they have gotten points at least. Lancaster has been pointless ever since the it's a nice pun actually since the Philadelphia sprint race where Wakelock won.
Yeah, very nice. Well, let's take a quick look at the Formula G2 results and how those couple drivers are doing down there. In England, Renato was able to get a nice score, a couple thousand above her nearest rival. Ankal, though, however, struggling quite a bit. I think that the seed was a little bit more challenging, so not too surprising to see their scores a little bit lower compared to the relatively actually easy seed the Formula regular drivers got. And then for the overall standings, she keeps her pretty dominant lead, 36 points over Ankal, who hasn't quite lost that second spot yet. Amkempe has kind of been having on and off weeks, and so he's in the hunt, but not able to really consistently overtake them. And yeah, Ben and GHZ just pretty much playing when they feel like it, and that hasn't been in the last week or two for them. All right. So to wrap up, we will take a look at our map for the penultimate week of Formula G, and it is Mexico. An average score of just over 12,000 and plenty of locations in this polygon map. And Guadalajara, and drivers will be thankful we're not in Mexico City for that sprint race, Calamity.
Yeah, although Guadalajara isn't exactly what I call nice either, but it's definitely much nicer than Mexico City. Yeah, Mexico might be the most difficult country out of this season. It's neck to neck with Montenegro, I'm gonna say, but yeah, probably the most difficult. And obviously, it'll depend a lot on the locations as well, as always, because Mexico is a huge country, and we could be in the middle of nowhere 5 times, or we could be in big cities 5 times. You never know.
Mm.
But definitely don't expect the top 10, the edge of the top 10 to be around 24.8k again. I'm expecting it to probably be, well, depending on the seed, but maybe around 20k that you need to reach to get a spot in the top 10, at least if the seed isn't super easy.
Yeah. Yeah, my favorite thing about Mexico is that I often find the road signs, but they don't have the number printed on them. Like they literally have the Mexican highway seal, and then it's just a blank where the number should be, and it's like, what happened here?
Yeah,
That's
see
one of
those
the
occasionally.
that's
Yeah.
one of the amusing parts that you can get into in Mexico. But yeah, I think the biggest clue in Mexico is the great variety of geography. Like you have very dry desert, the jungles
Mm.
in the south, and in the Yucatan Peninsula, and the kind of the mega cities of like Mexico City and Guadalajara. So yeah, it might be really hard to pinpoint, but you can kind of get a feel pretty quick what region you're in, and that might alone be enough to help you narrow down your search area and then find the few clues that you do get to get you in the right area and give you a shot at an ace in the round. Yeah, Guadalajara a lot nicer and more manageable than Mexico City. Mexico City is, I think, it's the largest city in the world by size in terms of just square meters covered, not the biggest in population. So that could be a
Uh,
mess. It was at one point. I don't know if it's changed, but
the list of
it's
largest city by area, it only includes U.S. State cities, Tokyo and Moscow.
really. And either people have been feeding me really bad information about Mexico City or
Or
something.
the Wikipedia article is awful. That's also
Yeah,
possible.
that
Let me
could be true.
see.
Yeah, yeah,
It depends. Which did you say? Metropolitan area or just
something
urban
like
area
that.
or
Yeah.
city proper?
That's the hard thing about big cities. Like, how do you measure it? Is it the
Yeah.
metropolitan area? Is it actually official city limits? Is all that thing. So lists are very unreliable depending on how you parse things out.
It's
I
not
there.
on it's not on top for any of those, by the way.
Okay, never
Uh,
mind then. It was just mistaken. But yeah, it should be a very interesting week for see how everybody does. And yeah, if we have any week, kind of like you said, Montenegro, this could be one where you don't need a 25 or 24k to be able to be on those points. So some of our
mm,
drivers who have been struggling might look to pick up a few points here as the season wraps up. Well, thank you all for watching. If you want to look at how the drivers actually perform in some of the races, definitely check out our cast. We cast 5 drivers every week and get 5 different perspectives on the seed for the future race, so you can check out those and you can see how they actually play out. And many of them, even who we don't feature, do record their videos, so check them out on their own YouTube channels. Just search their name on YouTube and you can find them, or hit them up in Discord, and I'm sure they'll be happy to give you a link to those. And we will see you all next week in Mexico. Take care.
bye.